On April 5, 2025, the world watched as President Trump unleashed a torrent of tariffs, the likes of which haven't been seen in over a century. The global community was stunned, glued to their screens, trying to grasp the magnitude of this unprecedented move. A blanket 10% tariff on imports from 185 countries came into effect, a sweeping act of economic isolationism. This was a bold statement, signaling a dramatic shift in U.S. trade policy. This was not a surgical strike, but a full-blown trade war, with targeted tariffs aimed at perceived economic rivals. The administration's strategy was clear: to disrupt and dismantle existing trade relationships. China, the European Union, Japan, none were spared. Major economies around the world found themselves in the crosshairs of this aggressive policy. These tariffs, ranging from 20% to a staggering 54%, were designed to reshape the global trade landscape, with America seemingly at the helm. The goal was to force other nations to renegotiate trade deals on terms more favorable to the U.S. These tariffs were not merely numbers on a spreadsheet. They were a declaration of economic warfare, intended to protect American industries and jobs. They signaled a retreat from decades of globalization, a turn inward towards a vision of economic nationalism. The administration believed this would revitalize domestic manufacturing and reduce dependency on foreign goods. The message was clear: America first, regardless of the cost. This was a bold, unapologetic stance that resonated with many, but also sparked intense debate and concern. The world held its breath, bracing for the inevitable fallout. Economists and analysts warned of potential repercussions, from rising consumer prices to strained international relations. This was not a negotiation. It was a power play, a high-stakes gamble with the global economy hanging in the balance. The true impact of these tariffs would unfold in the months and years to come, leaving the world to wonder about the future of international trade. Trump, in his characteristically bold fashion, proclaimed these tariffs as a necessary measure to revitalize the American economy. He argued that for too long, the United States had been taken advantage of by other countries, losing its competitive edge and seeing its industries decline. He painted a picture of a nation robbed of its industrial might, its jobs shipped overseas to the lowest bidder. The once thriving factories now stood silent, a stark reminder of what had been lost. These tariffs, he argued, were the antidote, a way to level the playing field and bring back the glory days of American manufacturing. By imposing these tariffs, Trump believed that American companies would be incentivized to keep their operations within the country, thus preserving and creating jobs. The tariffs, according to Trump, were a patriotic duty, a way to protect American workers and businesses from unfair competition. He emphasized that this was not just an economic strategy, but a moral obligation to safeguard the livelihoods of American families. He promised a resurgence of American industry, a flood of new jobs, and a return to economic dominance. The vision was clear: bustling factories, thriving communities, and a robust economy that could stand up to any global competitor. The tariffs were the cornerstone of his America First agenda, a bold stroke designed to make America great again. This policy was not just about economics. It was about restoring national pride and ensuring that America remained a global leader. His supporters cheered, energized by the prospect of a revitalized America, standing tall on the world stage. They believed in the promise of protectionism, seeing it as a path to a brighter, more prosperous future for all Americans. However, beneath the surface of Trump's rhetoric lies a harsh reality. The American consumer is caught in the crossfire. These tariffs, while positioned as a defense against foreign competition, are in essence a tax on the American people. Every imported good, from clothes to electronics, will see a price hike, leaving consumers footing the bill for this trade war. The irony is not lost on economists like myself. The Republican Party, traditionally a champion of lower taxes, has effectively enacted a massive tax increase on its own citizens. This blatant contradiction exposes the flawed logic at the heart of this protectionist policy. The tariffs, rather than bolstering the American economy, threaten to stifle it, burdening consumers and businesses alike with higher costs. The world has not stood idly by in the face of Trump's tariffs. China, the European Union, Japan, and numerous other nations have voiced their displeasure, threatening retaliatory tariffs of their own. The prospect of a global trade war, once a distant threat, has now become a very real possibility. Canada's Prime Minister, once a close ally of Trump, has publicly condemned the tariffs, accusing the United States of abandoning its commitment to international cooperation. The European Union, long a proponent of free trade, has threatened to respond in kind, targeting iconic American goods. The global trading system, painstakingly built over decades, is teetering on the brink of collapse. Section 5. The Looming Economic Storm. The economic forecasts are grim. Experts predict that these tariffs will have a ripple effect throughout the global economy, leading to higher prices, job losses, and a significant risk of a global recession. J.P. Morgan, a leading financial institution, has placed the odds of a recession by the end of 2025 at a staggering 60%. The price of everyday goods is expected to skyrocket. A new iPhone, now heavily reliant on foreign components, could see its price tag soar to over $2,000. The cost of living, already a concern for many Americans, is poised to increase dramatically. The tariffs, rather than ushering in an era of prosperity, threaten to plunge the world into an economic downturn. Section 6. Markets buckle under pressure. The initial reaction from the markets was swift and brutal. The Dow Jones Industrial Average, a key indicator of the health of the American economy, plummeted, along with the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Global markets followed suit, with Japan's Nikkei index experiencing its worst week in years. Companies like Apple and Nike, heavily reliant on global supply chains and foreign markets, saw their stock prices tumble. The uncertainty generated by the tariffs has created a climate of fear and volatility in the markets. Investors, once optimistic about the future, are now pulling back, bracing for the economic storm. Section 7. Navigating the Tariff Tightrope. Businesses caught in the crosshairs of this trade war are scrambling to adapt. Some, like Stellantis, a major automaker, have resorted to layoffs and plant closures, unable to absorb the increased costs. Others, like General Motors, are attempting to shift production back to the United States, a move fraught with its own challenges. The tariffs have created a logistical nightmare for businesses, forcing them to reevaluate their supply chains, renegotiate contracts, and navigate a complex web of new regulations. The long-term impact on American businesses remains uncertain, but one thing is clear. The tariffs have created a climate of instability and uncertainty. Section 8. A tax by any other name. The tariffs, despite Trump's claims to the contrary, are nothing more than a tax on the American people. They are a regressive tax, disproportionately impacting low- and middle-income families who rely on imported goods. The tariffs represent a fundamental betrayal of the Republican Party's core principles of limited government and fiscal responsibility. This latest round of tariffs is not merely an economic policy, it is a symptom of a deeper malaise. It is a reflection of a government that has lost its way, a government that has abandoned its commitment to free trade and international cooperation. The tariffs are a dangerous gamble, one that threatens to undermine the global economy and leave the American people worse off. Section 9. The Crumbling Edifice. The question remains, will these tariffs achieve their intended goal of revitalizing the American economy? This is a question that has been debated by economists, politicians, and everyday citizens alike. The stakes are high and the implications are far-reaching. The answer, in my view, is a resounding no. The tariffs are a short-sighted and ultimately self-defeating measure that will do more harm than good. They may provide temporary relief to certain industries, but the long-term consequences will be detrimental. The American economy, once a beacon of free trade and global cooperation, is now retreating behind a wall of tariffs. This shift marks a significant departure from the principles that once made the nation an economic powerhouse. This inward turn, fueled by a misguided sense of nationalism, threatens to undermine the very foundations of the global economic order. It is a move that isolates the country and alienates its allies. The tariffs are not a sign of strength, but a symptom of decline, a desperate attempt to cling to a fading era of American dominance. They reflect a reluctance to adapt to the changing dynamics of the global economy. The American empire, built on innovation, openness, and a commitment to free markets, is crumbling from within. The very pillars that supported its rise are now being eroded by policies that stifle growth and innovation. The tariffs are merely the latest crack in the edifice. They symbolize a broader trend of decline and disintegration, a warning sign that the once mighty structure is in danger of collapse.